Today, we're kicking things off with our international correspondent, the one and only Alex Newman. Alex, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here, Duke.
You look very rustic today. Nice to have you.
I am. I'm actually coming to you from a log cabin on a mountain in New Hampshire, and it's amazing that I have internet that's good enough to talk with you. So thanks for having me.
So you joined the militia is what you're telling us.
Yeah, precisely, right? No, I'm at Camp Constitution, having a blast, just getting ready to give a lecture on Freedom Project Academy and other great things, a great group of kids and families here. So
please take a look, Mom and Dad, out there at Camp Constitution. It's run by Hal Shurtleff. It's a fantastic, one-week camp in New Hampshire every summer. I tell you, it's a fantastic thing. You'll get to meet people like Alex Newman if you go next year. So check that out. That's Camp Constitution. And today, Alex, we're going to talk about the Underground Education Summit. Tell us what that is and what its purpose is.
Well, thanks, Duke. And so Sam Sorbo, very well-known, famous Hollywood actress. She then became a Christian film actress. She's also a homeschool mom. She's got a great show called School's Out on Epic TV, and she's written several books on this. And she put together this conference in Port Saint Lucie that I thought was just incredibly significant. And what she's arguing for basically is a total rethinking of education. Her argument is that we've basically been misled about everything, including the way children should be raised, educated, discipled, schooled, etc. And it's time to rethink that. And so she brought together a number of speakers, including some of our good mutual friends, like the wonderful counterculture mom, Tina Griffin, and her husband, Luke Griffin. It was just a 2-day summit talking about how do we rethink education completely? How do we get the kids out of the public schools? How do we get the parents to realize that they are not only capable and qualified to teach their own children, but they are some of the best possible teachers for their children. So it really was an extraordinary event. A huge number of people came out. Of course, it was sponsored by FreedomProject and at least a dozen other powerhouse organizations and companies. Just a great time.
So explain the title, Underground Education. That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, the thinking is it's really not mainstream at this point yet, right? We're still kind of underground. It's still kind of a movement that is almost seen by the establishment as subversive, right? Oh, we're teaching kids truth, teaching kids how to think, teaching kids logic. Oh, that stuff's dangerous. And so, it's just one of those kind of underground movements that has been building for a long time and is only now coming to the fore. So, Sam had some really interesting insight into this. Sam just fascinating lady. And one of the things that she brought up was, what we're dealing with the school system as it's constituted today. It's almost akin to the allegory of the cave that Plato came up with, right? We've all been chained up in this cave for so long, seeing only shadows, that when somebody tells us that there's, a whole world out there with color and 3 dimensions and, real legitimate education, we're like, no, that can't be. Don't be ridiculous. That's silly. And yet there is. And the homeschool movement and the students in Freedom Project and the students that are outside of the system know this, and we're hollering back into the cave, guys, you can come out, it's amazing out here, and they resist and they fight because they just can't even conceive of what it looks like outside of the cave. And so it has been an underground movement. It started resurfacing in the 70s. You had people who were literally defying the law to homeschool all across the country. It became more legal in the 80s and into the 90s, and now it's slowly moving out into the mainstream as more and more people meet children and adults who've been homeschooled and realize, wow, not only are they not weird, they're ridiculously smarter than me. They're running circles around my kids. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe I ought to step out of the cave. Very exciting time.
Yeah, it's really interesting and an interesting analogy. And one of my big bugaboos as a professor of English in a university is there's a whole technicolor world of great art and literature and poetry and history and drama that our kids are not being exposed to. One of the most egregious aspects of what's happening in the public schools is not just the horrible books that they're reading, it's what they're not reading. And this is absolutely planned, right? 2,000 years of great Western art and literature that made a cohesive sense of a Christian worldview. That has to be destroyed. We have to convince kids that there's nothing outside of the cave, that everything is meaningless except this ideology that surrounds and swallows up our kids.
Yeah, absolutely, Duke. And it almost reminds me of the Cultural Revolution in China, where everything old had to be destroyed, had to be demonized. The statues had to be torn down. The streets had to be renamed. The libraries had to be burned. The children had to be indoctrinated because only what came after the revolution was acceptable. And we're seeing it now, and we're seeing it play out in real time. As you said, they're hiding all the great works of literature and art, and they're teaching kids that, if it was made more than a few years ago, it's not gender inclusive enough. And so it's automatically sexist, racist, xenophobic, transphobic, homophobic, all the rest of it. It's truly a sight to behold. But this has to stop, and I think the underground education movement. Sam won't even call it homeschooling anymore. She said, I said homeschooling. She said, no, got to correct you. It's home learning, because we got to get out of the schooling mindset because we've been so brainwashed and indoctrinated by the schools. And just like you said, they've concealed so much from us. We've got to break free from that if civilization is going to survive as we've known it.
Is there anywhere that people can watch a recording of this underground event?
I was told that some of the videos will be made available later. I know several people were taking footage, including the Taken network. It's a Christian TV network, and also from what I understand from Sam and some of the other people who participated, they want to take the show on the road. In fact, it's a lot of the people that you know as well, Duke, like the Florida Citizens Alliance was one of the big sponsors, and they want to start doing these all over the state of Florida and then eventually all over the country. So I think you'll be hearing much more about this. Sam Sorbo really is a powerhouse. Her husband, Kevin Sorbo, and in fact her children are now little celebrities in their own right. So I think people are going to hear much more about this in the months and years ahead.